the Divorced Girl Smiling Podcast with your host, Jackie Pilosoff.
No one should have to go through a divorce feeling alone and isolated. The Divorced Girl Smiling Podcast is a production of Divorced Girl Smiling, where every show is 30 minutes aimed to empower you, help you feel validated and understood, and connect you with some of the best divorce professionals in the industry. So grab a cup of coffee or a glass of wine and start smiling as you join us right now for the Divorced Girl Smiling Podcast. Heard everywhere podcasts can be found and always at divorcedgirlsmiling.com. Before we get started, I want to say something about divorce. Every divorce is really difficult, but things can get a lot more complicated if there's alcohol involved, or more specifically, if there's somebody who's suspecting their ex of abusing alcohol. In these instances, preparation is really key, and there's no better tool on the market to safeguard your kids than SoberLink. SoberLink is the most trusted alcohol monitoring tool for tracking a co-parent's alcohol misuse. Think of it as a high-tech breathalyzer that notifies you instantly if your co-parent is drinking. Worried they'll cheat on the test? Not possible. When your co-parent tests, facial recognition confirms their identity, and tamper sensors flag any attempts to beat the system. Every family law attorney I know trusts SoberLink to improve child safety in custody cases that involves alcohol. So, set your family up for success and include SoberLink's court-admissible system in your parenting agreement. Go to soberlink.com/DGS and you get 50% off your device. I also want to tell you about a wonderful therapist named Brittany Baker. Brittany is an LCSW who works with couples, adults, and teens during hard, stressful times, including divorce. I've known Brittany for a couple years. I've referred several clients to her, and you can see right away, Brittany is extremely intelligent, very experienced, but really compassionate and warm, and somebody who's very easy to talk to and non-judgmental. Love Brittany, and if you want to learn more about her, you can find her on her website at nixbakerwellness.com. When I was first separated, to say that I knew nothing that was about to happen is an understatement. I had no information. I had no foundation. I don't even remember if I Googled things back then. It was 2008. So it was hard to get information. And when you're getting a divorce, you really have to educate yourself because most people aren't familiar with the court system. They don't even really know how anything works. And so what I want to do today is answer some of the questions you might have if you're going through a divorce or you're thinking about one. I have a great guest for this. Her name is Joy Farrell, and Joy is a divorce attorney in the Atlanta area. She's the founder of her firm, the Farrell Firm. She's been a divorce attorney for 15 years. And Joy, how are you?
I'm good. How are you today?
I'm good. Thanks so
Good.
much for taking time to be on the show.
Of course.
So, when people come to see you, when they schedule a consult and they come in there, do they have the same thing I just talked about? Like they're sort of lost unless it's a second divorce.
Well, usually, even on a second divorce, people are lost. A lot of times,
Ah,
you with multiple divorces. One was super easy, simplistic, uncontested. They did the paperwork themselves. And then the second marriage or the third marriage found itself to be more complex because maybe there were children involved, maybe there was assets, money, property involved. So typically, when people come to me, they're either highly concerned with custody of their children and how they're going to take care of them, or two, they're highly concerned with their assets. How are they going to get assets from the other person, presuming that they don't have as much, or how are they going to keep their assets from the other person taking what they believe that they've earned? So, usually, when I start talking to someone, I try to gather for them, hey, what is the most important thing to them? And I try to start with that. For some people, it's their kids, some people, it's their money. It very rarely wavers from one of those.
Okay, now, Joy, are you more of a mediator attorney or do you go to trial if you need to?
I'm a trial lawyer.
Okay. So you're
I encourage settlement and mediation because, of course, no one can come up with a better deal than you and your spouse at the end of the day. But if people choose not to settle and they must go to court and they've now and I've also advised that, hey, this is worth going to court over because I think our chances are strong, then we go to trial. I do advise clients because I've been doing this a long time in a lot of jurisdictions here in Atlanta, been in front of a lot of judges. Honestly, I can predict how these cases are gonna turn out on day one. It's just a matter of will the client listen to you and take your advice, and think that their case is so special that it's gonna be different for them, or will they go ahead and, settle?
okay, but here's the deal, and tell me if you agree with this. When people want to go to court, it's usually because they want to be heard. They want a judge to hear all of the horrible things that their ex did, how awful he's been. He's never changed a diaper, he's never around, he's mean, he's abusive. And I guess you can answer this question better than me, but they're not gonna get that. And so is the challenge then trying to convince them they're not gonna get that? I've been doing this for 15 years. I'm gonna tell you what you're probably gonna end up with if you go to court, and here's why you should sit down and mediate this.
Yes, that is very true. The majority of people who are insistent on going to court typically have a story that they want to tell. They want to tattletale in some degree. I want the judge to hear all these terrible things that you did to me. Now, Jackie, I also said part time as a judge as well here in DeKalb County in the Atlanta area. And so the thing about judges, myself being one, and then also going in front of a lot of judges, they hear thousands of cases, in just a few months span. And the story that you're telling is for very many people the same story over and over. And honestly, we don't need to hear it. Like we know where it goes. Like, okay, you have a husband who doesn't help with the children. He works all day, he comes home, looks at his phone, stays in the bathroom for 20 minutes, doesn't come out, doesn't, do the dishes. You have to do everything. You also have to work. He's a cheater, he's a liar. She's a cheater, she's a narcissist. She all these things, we hear it all the time. And it's not that it doesn't matter because it does to you, but at the end of the day, divorce is a business. And we're getting down to the money and we're getting down to the kids. Now, some cases, like I just had a case recently, 30-year marriage. Husband had an ongoing marital affair, and the wife was insistent on wanting to tell the court this story. And this is a rare occasion where I actually prepared my trial around his behaviors because it was so egregious. And my client didn't have any retirement. Say she had a job but no retirement, and I really needed the court to give her more of the assets. And we have a law here in Georgia that says your behavior can impact the division of the assets. So I really needed to tell a story of that behavior to not do like a 50-50 split, but to do, something more like this. And so we ended up going back with the judge, which we call a pretrial. A lot of times, before we go to trial, the day of trial, we'll go back and talk to the judge because the judge, again, doesn't want to hear the case. And the judge wants the lawyers to say, hey, give me a summary. What are we talking about here? What am I going to be deciding? And I told the judge, like, hey, look, 30-year marriage, these are the assets. But listen, my client does want to tell her story because she gave 30 years to this man. And she's wanting more because of his behavior. And of course, it is like, yeah, yeah. I mean, that's terrible what you did. I know. What are you asking for? Ultimately, we did walk away. From we didn't have to have the trial. My client settled in court. She got, that tilted division of assets. The husband didn't necessarily want that stuff coming in on the record, but very rarely will I allow a client to do that. Most of the time, I don't care too much about the behavior when it comes down to the legalities of the case.
Okay, so what you're telling me is that story you just told me is not the norm. That is an exception.
An
And
exception.
and that must have felt really good. But I remember, like, for me, in my divorce, we had to go to court a few times before we ended up mediating and settling. And the judge didn't care. You got 2 minutes. I never got to say anything. You didn't get
Right.
any time to tell your story.
Right.
So,
Well, be clear, the judge didn't care, but she was like, yeah, I mean, I hear you say."
and also, it might come down to, is she in a good mood that day?
Correct.
Is she looking at the people thinking, oh, this person is, I do feel sorry for them. Or maybe, I don't buy it. It could go any way. And you're giving your power to the judge.
Yeah,
And
it's 2
you know
sides
how
to every story, always. Just as much as one person wants to tell it, the other person has another story, and then you just get all this back and forth, and it muddies the waters. That's why no one really wants to hear it. You just gotta get down to the money and the kids.
the money and the kids. I love that. It's so true.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I was just going to say one other thing. Oh, if you decide to mediate,
Yeah.
if the people say, okay, we'll mediate, don't you feel like if you've ever been in, which I'm sure you have, attorney assisted mediation where you're there or you
Mhm.
hear about it, then you do possibly get to tell a little bit of your story. Even
Mhm.
though in mediation you're not supposed to, it's not marriage counseling, but
Right.
you do get to say, like that woman could have said, I gave you 30 years, you cheated. Here's why I feel like I deserve more. And so you are getting to get those feelings out, whereas with a judge, 99% of the time you just don't.
Yeah, no, that's very true. Mediation is a time the mediator is definitely more patient. And you're paying for her to be patient, him or her to sit there and listen to that story. But they will sympathize and empathize with you and try to use those points to resolution. But any good attorney on the other side of the case is still going to be like, yeah, yeah, like that's not going to be a thing in court. So like that's not going to make us necessarily settle or not. And for me, one thing I do when I'm representing let's call it the offender, the person who's done the bad things in the marriage, and I've had lawyers want to present cases. I mean, the whole narrative on that, I'll just send them and say, Your Honor, we concede that he cheated. Let's move on. We acknowledge. Like, I don't need the details. I don't need the text messages. I don't need the emails because the standard is, was there adultery? Yes, there was, but we're not about to talk about it. Let's
Okay,
move on.
well, I didn't even think it mattered. In Illinois, it doesn't matter. Does it matter in Georgia?
It doesn't unless you're going for alimony. If you cheated, you do not get alimony. Also, the behavior can tilt how the assets are split. But again, it has to be egregious. I mean, like, just because you cheated, like, okay. I mean, there's levels to cheating, and I hate to say that, but there's definitely levels to cheating. So it just all depends. But because it doesn't matter so a person has a right to present their case, right? The judge can try to move you on, but hey, I'm here to present a case. And so if I have a lawyer trying to present a case surrounded by cheating, I'll just say, Your Honor, we concede to cheating. Like there's no element to prove here. We concede to it so they can move on. And it's like, oh, so there's no need to ask any other questions about the cheating because we just conceded to it. Move on. And most lawyers, especially inexperienced lawyers, are built their case on that fact, and now I've said, we did it, move on to your point." And it's like, "Okay, well, that was the basis of my case because I really thought that this was a big deal, and you made it not a big deal, so now what do I do?"
I love it. You're listening to the Divorce Girls Smiling podcast. My name is Jackie Pilosoff, and I'm your host. If you're getting divorced, it comes down to the money and the kids. That's what we're talking about today. My guest is Joy Farrell, divorce attorney in Atlanta, founder of her firm, the Farrell Firm. Just found out today that Joy is also a judge.
Mhm.
Unbelievably impressive. And we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to get into a little bit more detail about, if you're new to this or you're going through it, what happens to the kids? What happens to the assets? And a few more tips for those who are newly separated. We'll be right back. From someone who went through a divorce without any divorce coaching, I can say personally how important it is to get support during and after divorce. Having this kind of support would have made a huge impact both in my emotional state of mind and the outcome of my divorce. Andra Davidson has spent 25 years working in crisis communication. She's a divorce coach and a mediator who offers this amazing online divorce course for those who either have a divorce course and want some self-directed divorce support, or they choose not to hire a divorce coach. Andra went through a divorce herself, so she understands, and she's so passionate about helping men and women succeed in a divorce. What does succeed mean? It means to regain self-confidence, find inner strength, and successfully move through the divorce process so you can get the best possible divorce outcome. If you want to learn more about Andra and her course, which is called Better Than Before Divorce, you can find it at betterthanbeforedivorce.com. I also want to tell you about an amazing co-parenting program called BEH2O. Now, this course was developed by Trina Knudsen, who is such an impressive person. Trina has held jobs such as foster care social worker, juvenile intake counselor, truancy officer. She's a licensed social worker, a divorce attorney, a mediator, a parenting coordinator, and a domestic case manager. Oh, and she's also a divorce coach. Trina is wonderful, and this course, BEH2O, is going to help you empower yourself and your family to thrive during divorce. It will help you build a stable, supportive environment by embodying the values you want to instill in your child. If you want to learn more about BEH2O, go to thelaneproject.com. And you can find both BEH2O and Better Than Before Divorce in the Trusted Professional section of Divorced Girl Smiling. Welcome back to the Divorced Girl Smiling podcast. My name is Jackie Pilosoff, and I'm your host. If you're getting divorced, it comes down to the money and the kids. Those are the words of Joy Farrell, my guest, divorce attorney, founder, the Farrell Firm. I believe your website is farrellfirm.com.
That's correct.
Okay. She's been practicing for 15 years, very well respected, well known, and also a part-time judge. Joy, let's move on to, I want to start with kids, child support.
Before we move on, I want to say this quote that a judge said to me last year, and I'm like using it left and right about the behavior because it sticks. The judge said in a case that I had, she says, "Hey, tell your client I'm not going to penalize behavior that she allowed for 20 years."
Wow.
Like, oh,
That would feel harsh.
I was like, "Oh, but that's a great way to put it." Like, you can divorce at any time. 1 day married, 6 months married, 10 years, 5 years, 20, 30, whatever. And so you tolerated this behavior for 20 years. Do not expect me to punish it today.
Okay, but I just want to add, though, we say that without judgment because we don't know. Maybe the person was just too scared. Maybe the person needs help themselves. So yes,
Yes.
I agree. But I like the no nonsense approach. And I think you're right.
I mean, sitting judges have to be no nonsense, because
Mhm.
s honestly, like, seriously, like, there are some situations where people are in them and can't get out of them, and they have no control factor of that. But if we do a bird's eye view and really do a non-judgmental evaluation, there's usually behavior of both spouses that kind of it's how we ended up here. And you can never blame one person at 100%. And so there is accountability that does have to take place in these cases, because otherwise, if you take on the victim mentality, you're just going to be stuck. You're just not going to be able to move forward from this.
Well, do you know how many people I talk to? Well, in the last 18 years since I've been divorced, like I'll meet people and I'll go, the conversation comes up like, oh, why'd you get divorced? Well, my husband cheated. Well,
Mhm.
okay, there has to be more than that. And
Yeah,
and sometimes people just decide to make that the
the
narrative
thing, right?
thing. They
I
didn't say that the husband and I have not had any intimate relations or a real relationship in over 5 years. We were sleeping in different bedrooms. What did you think was gonna happen? Not that the cheating is right, but
Right. I say the same thing. I just did a thing about this, and because, the blogs and articles and research, quote unquote, says, oh, people get divorced because of what? Sex, money, and what else?
cheating.
Yeah, cheating. So, okay. And so, yes, those are underlying factors, but those are never the reason. I have so many marriages that bounce back from cheating. Marriages can heal from cheating. It does not end a marriage unless you want it to. What ended your marriage is all the other things: the lack of intimacy, the lack of feeling seen, the lack of feeling supported, all those things. Money, like a marriage ending over money, like what? Like there's money to be made. We can make money. Like there's like, I'm not leaving my husband over money. We were broke when we got married. Like we we can make money, okay? Like I'm not leaving him over money or spending habits because all those things are very fixable, unless you choose not to fix them. And then, like I say about sex, like, well, sex can be had, okay, if you want to have sex, for most people. And so, like those things do not end marriages, although they are the underlying factors. But no,
Well, I also have people go, "Oh, well, I cheated because my wife would never have sex with me." Well, guess what? If you are
why
not
she didn't have sex with you?
right, right.
Right.
What are you doing, like,
Uh-huh.
to make her wanna have sex with you?
Right.
Are you being thoughtful? Are you showing her respect? Nobody wants to have sex with somebody who feels like that the person is mean,
Really?
disrespectful, doesn't ever do anything to show that they love you.
Right.
It's so much more than the
Yeah,
sex.
it's a whole science behind men needing to learn how, like, women will gladly have sex when you put in the work. When
They
you
actually yeah, their form of foreplay is thoughtfulness, respect,
Mhm.
likability,
Yep,
what else? It's just all comes from emotion.
absolutely. Yep.
Okay, let's move on to the kids, and I wanna know for people who are just starting out, tell me about child support. How is it calculated in a divorce?
Yeah. So the first thing you kinda wanna know when we're talking about child support is who's gonna be the primary parent, meaning majority of the time, or there's gonna be a 50-50 parenting plan, a joint custody plan, because that's gonna greatly determine the numbers. But let's just say the person inquiring is the person that's gonna have custody of the children. We use a calculator here in Georgia, and I know a lot of other states do too. And the primary basis, that's gonna determine the outcome of a child support calculation is the income of both parties. So you put husbands, or let's just say spouse, because we have same sex marriages. So spouse one income into the worksheet, spouse two income into the worksheet. And then we also add a couple other factors like the health insurance premiums that are paid. If there's any daycare expenses, work related childcare expenses, we can also put that into the worksheet. And we hit a button and it's going to generate a number. It's gonna make a total number, so let's just say the number is like $1,000, and the $1,000 is what the calculator says it takes to take care of this child or these children, and then it's gonna apply a percentage, to that $1,000. So let's say spouse A is 40% of that, so that's gonna be $400. Spouse B is 600, and so that would be $600. So depending on which spouse has a child, that would be the obligation, to the other person.
Okay, so this is the only thing, correct me if I'm wrong, that is just calculated with a formula and there's really nothing to discuss. I mean, I'm sure there are exceptions, but
Well, you get you a savvy attorney, there's always something to discuss because because the first conversation is, well, what is the income, right? Because I don't want to just count your paycheck. I want to account for the income that you're receiving for the rental property that you have. I want to count the fringe benefit that you have. You work for a job, you don't have to pay your cell phone bill. Well, that's the extra $130 that you're not having to pay. You drive a company vehicle, so therefore you don't have to pay a car note. Well, I'm going to add that as a fringe benefit onto your income. So there's different ways you can add income. You just have to have an attorney that knows the argument to get that additional income. And then we also say, well, okay, so sometimes we have a lot of people who are underemployed. So we impute income. And that means I'm going to impute your income to what you should be earning. So if you have a bachelor's degree and a master's degree and you don't have a job? Okay, well, I'm going to ask for the income that you're supposed to have, based on those credentials, and your age and your city. And you may make zero, but I may ask the court to put you in at $65,000 because that's what you should be making, or that's what you're going to make when you leave here today and go out and find a job. So there's lots of arguments around it, as far as that. And also, a big one is with the work related childcare. And so, depending on which client I'm representing, if I'm representing the person that's going to pay the child support, I don't want the child care in the worksheet because one, it shoots it all the way up. I like it outside of the worksheet because it's a variable that changes. The prices for daycare facilities change. If there's a closure, it changes. When the child gets older, it changes. And so nobody wants to come back to court every time there is a fluctuation in the daycare. And so we take it out of the worksheet and, basically say, all right, you pay this amount of child support and then you guys split the daycare 40-60 or 50-50 or whatever we call pro rata share is based on the worksheet.
All right. What are the exceptions to this formula?
There's really no
And
exception.
okay. Okay, good to know. All right, let's move on to parenting time schedules. How does that
Mhm.
work?
So for me, um, So, a lot of my women clients, I represent men and women just about equally. A lot of women clients will come in and say, "Oh, I want my kids." I'm like, "What does that mean?" Like, what is, and they say, "I want full custody." I'm like, "Well, what does that mean?" Because we actually don't use the term full custody here in Georgia. So I'm like, I want you to use your words and tell me what does that mean. And basically, translation means I want to be a tired, exhausted mom with no help, is what it says to me. And so I always say, hey, 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 let me tell you, because I'm a mom too. All right. And I'm tired and I work and all these things. Like, let's just think big picture here. And I say this every time. Like, do you want to leave this divorce and you go on and be a tired single mama and he go live a bachelor life? He can go get him a condo and live in the city and get a nice car. He don't have car seats all in the back and all those kind of things. Or do you want someone like a free babysitter to come in and help you? Do you want guaranteed help where you know that, hey, if I want to go back to school, I can. If I want to pick up a hobby, I can. If I want to go play tennis, I know that on these days, the other parent can do that. And so it's really a shifting of the mind. But the first thing I do is ask what you want, and then I try to confirm what you want because I try to live it out for you because I've seen it. I've had so many clients where I've gotten them exactly what they asked for, and then they're miserable, because they're exhausted, they're tired, they don't have any help. The kids are in this sport and that sport, and they can't do it on their own. And the other parent only has them every other weekend, and it's like, well, that's exactly what you asked for. So you have to be careful what you ask for when you go
Okay.
here.
Okay, I was just gonna add to that. I'm sure you do this, but I would think, do you feel that the kids are safe with your ex? Do you feel like he is a good parent? Are you gonna worry when they're with him? Is there, like, some kinda drug or drinking issue? You gotta think about.
Usually I'm gonna know that before we even start
Oh,
talking.
okay.
That's usually the
Alright.
first thing out the gate. They're gonna have that in my intake form that, they're dealing with, alcoholics, somebody's on drugs. That's a completely
Yes.
different conversation when we have safety issues, real safety issues, right? Because also we have a lot of people who say there's issues because we have the parent who doesn't know how to change the diaper, and we have the parent who maybe didn't check the water temperature before they put the child in the bathtub. Like, those are not actual real safety issues. Those are parenting picky pointer kind of things. And I always have to question too, like, okay, I have to, and I, as a juvenile court judge, children's safety is like number one on in my mind, but I also know where people are just kind of making excuses to make sure they can win.
Uh-huh.
So the other thing too is like, okay, so when exactly did they become a bad parent? Like, at what point in this 10-year relationship or 15-year relationship, at what point was this something that's an issue? And like, what made us do something about it now? Right? Like,
Yeah.
this person
Right.
sleeps in your house every night with your kids. So tell me what it is that means they can't do that going forward.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, and also, I believe there are studies, but if I don't know this for sure, but I have to believe that kids are better off if the they're safe with both parents, having both parents in their lives for a significant amount of time. So I have to believe the kids are going to do better in the long term by having both as well. And plus, what you said, Joy, the mom is not going to get burnt out and then just not even be that great of a mother because you're so
Right.
tired and burnt
You're
out.
a better parent when you have chances to rest and refresh. Okay. Yeah, you can tell a mama who's had her kids nonstop for 7 days compared to a mama who just picked her kids up and she's full of energy. She's doing arts and crafts. Okay. He's like, oh, take your little time getting into the car versus the mama that's like, get in the car. you know, there's differences to this. But yeah, I believe very strongly. And the research does show that kids benefit from having both parents in their life, significantly. For the fathers, that's still a battle, at least here in Georgia, for fathers to have the same respect that mothers have. I feel like old school dads, in previous generations, the trend is that they are the providers. They're not caregivers. They do not care for children. New school dads are very active. They're the team coach. They're staying home with kids. They're changing diapers. They're taking kids to the doctors, and so depending on which judge I get in front of, if I'm in front of an older judge who's more traditional, I know I have more of a fight to say, "Hey, this dad is not of your generation. He is active. He is helpful." I've had judges deny agreement for 50-50 because they're like, "Oh, kids shouldn't go back and forth between houses." And it's like, "No, a kid shouldn't go 14 days without seeing a parent," is what I believe.
Oh, I love this. This is so, so good to know. All right, we're running out of time, but I don't want to end the podcast before we talk about splitting of assets.
Mhm.
I bet you, Joy, tell me if I'm right. Everybody who comes in says, well, I want to stay in my house. Like that's the first thing they say, right?
Yes, people are so attached to their house, and I just don't understand why. you know,
So, what do you say to these people, and how do we come up with a good solution that makes everybody happy?
Well, one, I'm trying to find out why are you attached to the house, right? A lot of people say, "Oh, my this is my kid's house." Well, kids forget real quick. They love new things. Kids are so adaptable. They adapt better than we do. That is really not a good reason to hold on to your house. And I'm like, "Do you have all these memories in here with this person? Like, don't we want a fresh start?" And then it's like, "Can you afford the house? Because divorce is expensive, right? You're now living two lives on really the same money the two of you had." And so it's like, "Can we still afford this house? Can we still afford this district? Like, we would do a lot better if we put this house for sale, put 100,000 in your pocket, 200,000 in your pocket, whatever the equity is, you go start over." That's a much easier spin versus like just trying to hold on to something. But yeah, everybody wants their house. And for me, like, I don't know, I've moved when my kids were younger. I had to move a lot for work and stuff like that. And my kids were fine.
Okay, I love this no nonsense, Joy. If I was getting divorced in Atlanta, you would be my first call.
It's tough because some people don't like it, and I tell my clients, I try to be so honest with you because I want you to hear from me, and I don't want you to spend $50,000 and get to exactly what I told you would happen. Like, you can do this way less than that, a fraction of that. But a lot of lawyers, if you want me to sell you a dream, I can sell you a dream. I can sell you a dream all day. I can tell you, yeah, we're gonna go after alimony. We're gonna get you full custody. We're gonna get you a more child support than the worksheet pulls, and we're gonna get you to keep the house, and you're not gonna pay me anything. Do you know how much people will pay you to chase that, and it's never gonna happen. And so you really have to go with a firm that has integrity. Like, I don't want you to waste my time. I don't wanna waste yours. I am results driven. I have an excellent reputation for doing what I say I'm gonna do and getting what I say you can get. And let's do it. And so I'm not about to be out here like entertaining what I call is foolishness. And just making you think that it's gonna work out for you in some other way. There's nothing special about your scenario from the other scenario that's gonna say, "Hey, you know what? I know every other time I do this, but for you, I'm gonna do that." Mm.
Wow, I am sold. All right, Joy, thank you so much for being on the podcast. What a great conversation. I think we helped so many people going through a divorce. I
Don't hate me, guys. I'm really nice.
You are really nice. I actually look at my
Be
reaction.
honest. People
Great.
don't like that. People.
Oh, I think they do. Especially people going through a divorce. They don't wanna, you know, this was just wonderful. I can't say enough about it. Thank you, Joy.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate being here.
If you want to learn more about Joy or have a consult, go to thefarrellfirm.com. You can also find Joy in the trusted professional section of Divorced Girl Smiling, which is divorcedgirlsmiling.com. You can also go to my website to read articles, listen to more podcasts, or sign up for my free consult where I listen to your story for 30 minutes, and then I make recommendations on which professionals would be a good fit for you to get you the best possible divorce outcome. Thank you so much for listening, everyone, and we'll talk to you real soon.
Bye.